But the bipartisan talks, in my opinion, is just a waste of time.
Who do we vote for? People like you?
Of course.
So what are you promising us in the next 4 years?
Why didn't she say that during the campaign? And afterwards.
No, she did actually.
Roots party.
Did you listen to the Hot Breakfast this morning? Here's what you missed.
Let's take a look at the state of the nation. Joining us live in the studio, Justina Wamae, former running mate in the Roots Party, and of course, one of our favorites, the champ himself, Gabriel Muthuma, is in the house. Folks, welcome to Hot 96. Kamakawa.
Asante
Karibuni sana.
Thank you.
Justina Kosa.
Kabisa.
Ile pesa lunch.
Ameleta to
I was
vitu.
vindicated. I was vindicated.
You were?
Yes.
Walisemaje?
Walisema pesa ilitolewa na nilisema hivyo last year. Money was poured. Kenyan said nadanganya.
Ulikuwa?
Lakini mimi sikuwa mwenye alipeana alisema alipeana pesa.
I don't know where you guys were on Friday night, but it was kind of dark.
Then I saw a meme. Hey man, Kenyans are bad.
Kenyans are nasty.
Yeah, a train full of people at Kenyans heading to Tanzania to charge their phones. Please, where do you get all this? Oh my goodness.
You're creative.
The creative is on another level.
But heads should have rolled, Justina. Don't you think so?
I think so but I think Kenyans need to prepare themselves for more blackouts. From where I sit, I feel like they'll be switching off power to fire some people. That is what I think. Because explain to me why the MD of KAA had to leave and he's not the one in charge of power. I don't know.
No, but you know what happened is they say there's 2 generators
To stand by.
Yes, that have not been commissioned. You understand?
Yes.
So I think that is the justification. How can the airport have generators that are not running?
How?
I was really following it because it's this should not be happening at this time and age. And she was telling me, we have a problem. And she did not put it in such words, but that's the direction I think she was taking me. We have a problem with IPPs because the faulty line that failed, honestly, was the Turkana wind power, and that's an IPP. So I think when it failed, the other grids were not able to pick it up. So the cutout on the entire grid was a fail-safe mechanism. Can you imagine?
So
it was a fail-safe mechanism so that equipment is not destroyed. It is probably the same thing. Okay, actually, think about it this way: when your ninis in your house they trip, when there's too much power, yeah, when there is very little power that cannot overload. You remember your 2 lights they go dim, and some other, items in your house they switch off. Those are fail-safe mechanisms, and that's how I got. Coming to KAA, I think I saw where the CS came from. And again, let's just be honest. The airport, Jomo Kenyatta, is, and also all the other airports that we have, these are key security installations. Yeah? It's like saying, what are fire engines doing on the tarmac? And there's no fire, really. Jeff, why do you see, when you land in New York, why do you see fire trucks?
All the time.
There's no fire, really.
Just in case.
Just in case. Preparation. So any person who is self-deserving, an airport like Jomo Kenyatta, should always be grounded. If these fail, immediately.
Yeah, it's a Kenyan problem. And then something about Lake Turkana quickly. They said that they only produce 14% of what is required. So they are removing themselves from this blame. They're saying it's not us. We just switched off because it couldn't absorb the 270 megawatts. What I'm trying to say, even the PS Energy yesterday said, we are still investigating. So I think they tried to put the blame on someone. It didn't stick because they spoke to Kenyans. In short, what am I saying? Loss of business, rotting of food and fish, and even not going to your kinyozi because of power is something that is affecting someone who gets their money from hand to mouth. So we need to be careful about efficiency and power supply.
The other thing is this blame game has just got to stop.
Totally.
Let's take a look. 2 or 3 weeks ago, eCitizen was hacked.
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
Nobody said a thing. They were very quiet about that.
I think we just need to up our game. We need to understand the sophisticates of this century. These are the times that we've accepted. If you're going to leave open ports, they are going to be hacked. They're going to be attacked.
Yeah.
And I know there's still some investigations going on because people are asking, really, is it somebody opening up these ports deliberately for them to be hacked? You never know. Could it be, like Justina is saying, a Kenyan problem? Could it suffice that we've gotten so out of tune with patriotism that we are willing to sell our country for fun. Really. You know, there's something that happened, and I know we are within the media fraternity, Jeff, even as we talked about the issue of hacking and the power loss. You saw yesterday the screaming headlines, on our dailies, and you could tell they were synchronized. The question I was asking is, yes, it is good to report, and I'm not saying we abscond any person from responsibility or accountability. That's not what I'm saying, and neither am I advocating for such. But we also need to be mindful, Justina, of what we put outside there. You imagine you had some 2 billionaires sitting somewhere in Italy wanting to come and invest in Kenya, and this is what they see on your dailies.
There's someone who feel I'm patriotic, I know how to do my job, I know what to do, but they'll never be promoted. That is why when you go to this to civil, what is the role of career civil servant in this country? People who are well read, they know the problem, they know the solution, but you'll never see them promoted. So those are the things that make people say, anyway, let me just take my salary and go home. And remember, there's a majority that politicians are forgetting. Anyone who is elected or appointed across the divide, 8 million Kenyans didn't vote last year. And I think more Kenyans are just sinking into that pit of, you know what, politics is not working for me. But I want to encourage Kenyans that the purpose of you voting is to come up with leaders who are going to influence policy to make your life easier. You know, so the moment you stay at home, you're not going to make your life easier. So you have to be active. Vote for people who at least you're going to say, in the next 20 years, like the next 10 of the evolution, a child who is 10 today will be 20. Do we still want that child to be doing kazi za mtama, kazi ya mkono? No. We want creativity, we want innovation. So I'm challenging people who feel like voting is not their thing, politics is not their thing. Politics gets you policy makers and policy influencers who make policies to make your life easier.
Who do we vote for? People like you?
Of course.
So what are you promising us in the next 4 years? Right after they finish bipartisan talks.
Of course, I'll be in the picture. But one thing I stand for, as it is, role of government should not be to create jobs. It should be to create a conducive environment for private sector to thrive. So Kenyans are connecting now that it's not just voting, it's about delivery. How are you going to make my life easier according to Schedule 4, the functions of national government and county? And I'm happy we are having this conversation now. And the things will change. But sadly, politicians thrive on the ignorance of the masses. IBC has been complaining that they don't have funding even for civic education. But what media is doing is a good thing. This is part of civic education. The masses need to realize that we cannot thrive on handouts, bursaries, and welfare. We need personal income so that we can move forward as a country.
In Bomas, Jeff, to be honest, there is a conversation that may happen.
Or may not.
When it comes, a conversation around the office of the leader of opposition, the cementing the office of the cabinet secretary, the chief cabinet secretary.
Opposition.
Opposition. That is a conversation that may happen. The rest, like trying to audit the election 2022, it won't happen. That one I can tell you. The things like so-and-so handshake joining government, that will not happen. Anything else I think can be discussed. But if the elephant in the room is going to be the 2022 elections, those talks will actually come to a frightening halt. That one I can assure you. Because this, I believe, is something that is done and dusted. We are 3 years, 11 months removed from the next general election. The current administration, their scorecard and their hourglass has already been turned. Time is moving. In the next 3 years, we'll be expecting them to come with a scorecard. They're telling them, this is what you promised, this is what you've achieved. They cannot now be sitting somewhere at Bomas having conversations about an election that passed, unless the opposition is going to use that as a gimmick to actually derail them from their original purpose.
The fact is, when you go into election, someone will win and someone will lose. Yeah. That is a fact. But anyway, again, where are we having Bomas? And we have 256, Article 256, the parliamentary way, or 257, the popular way, if you want to amend the constitution. We've had this conversation for so long. I think I'm challenging women that when Grace Onyango went into parliament in 1969, those guys voted for her, Kisumu town at the point. So what should we women package ourselves to the citizens? I think it's about time we sell ourselves in a way that the voter will give us the opportunity. Because now Kenyans are complaining. When you nominate women, when you have 47 women reps, they are not helping. They are not helping the wage bill. They are not performing. So my challenge is to the women. Why don't we go back? Of course, we don't have money. Tell Kenyans the truth. We don't have money, but we have an idea. But the bipartisan talks, in my opinion, is just a waste of time.
What a shame.
There is an area where you can go and have your grievances heard. So I think, Jeff, this issue of always, because it happens, it's become so cyclic that it's actually pulling us back. Our democracy is affected because we have not realized the true meaning of democracy. We feel that true democracy is when you have absolute rights and absolute freedoms. That will never happen. We need to know that even if we have the most progressive constitution, we have checks and balances in it that allows you to go only to a certain level. And I think if we are in tune with such, we are going to build a country that most people will be grateful for. So this maneno of sitting down and saying we're having a constitution, yes, it is welcomed on those two agendas.
Some people say that the choice of CSs was very wanting in some. Not all, in some. And then the CSs don't help themselves at all when they board planes with girlfriends and fly first class to events where the real heroes that you were talking about earlier on are flying in coach.
I have not seen anything tangible to suggest. I have not seen. Has it happened? Maybe. Yeah? If that fact cannot be transferred, Nick, it becomes gossip, right?
Yeah.
So
Hearsay.
yeah, it's hearsay. If you bring me, like you would ask, where you are, as a credible journalist, would give me facts, give me something to go by, and somebody does not show you, then you realize that maybe. And it's one thing to claim something, and it's one thing to really mess somebody's name, and I'm very mindful of that. However, I take cue from what the president said. Because he was angry. You could tell he was angry. You people are letting me down. And I'm glad that the president cautioned that the same kalamu I signed your contracts is the same kalamu I may use to dismiss you. And I think it's high time people take it seriously, because at the end of the day, we elected the president. We voted for the president, not them. It would be disastrous for him to continue moving with dead weight.
Correct.
When President was giving them the positions, he was rewarding loyalty. That's a fact.
Yeah.
But now it's biting him. He's realizing these guys are just failing me, because many guys are there so that they can create for the 2027 election. Guys are not on the ground. True. They are using government resources to campaign for 2027.
That is true.
And then they're letting down the president, because guys will say, hey, Ruto talks so much, PR Mingi, and he's not delivering. But Jeff, there's something we face in this country called scarcity mentality. When you're an ordinary Kenyan, you cannot even afford to go to that. You're calling it Budapest. You can't even pay a flight for yourself. But when you're in government, you want to use government resources. Ask yourself, if an ordinary Kenyan cannot afford, if I was an ordinary Kenyan, would I even afford going to that place? So I want even our leaders to remember that if you couldn't afford some things when you're an ordinary Kenyan, don't go for things you are because now you're using taxpayers' money.